This is an overview of where we're at with our course, and where we're at is we're jumping into week 4. And in week 4 we're going to talk about cell signaling and the cell cycle. And these chapters, chapter 13 is minor. So it's a small chapter. It's a relatively long chapter, but it's going to be a small topic for our course. In these chapters, and these chapters, and these chapters, we go outside of the book some, and so you want to watch the mini lectures for these chapters because they're complementary to the book. And the chapter 11 is about cell signaling. Chapter 12 is about the cell cycle. And so we'll meet again in June 11th, and we'll have these and these in hand by then. And then head down to some more genetics and start to wrap up our course. So we're in pretty good shape. Here's where we're at in our themes for our specific course, and it's about the cell, all about the cell. And then we're coming up on this. All cells come from pre-existing cells, so a cell is going to divide into two cells, and during a process called the cell cycle, chapter 12. And that is controlled, that is regulated. And it's regulated because if this is out of control, people get cancer. And so we'll talk some about cancer biology here, and we'll also talk about the normal regulation of it. And this regulation would be something that would be considered to be information flow. Information is, should I, as a cell, divide or not? Who's controlling me? And so we're going to talk about that. And in talking about that, it's going to be all about the proteins that regulate this. And so it's going to be pathways of information similar to how we had metabolism in the last few chapters, and lots of different metabolic pathways with lots of choices. And these metabolic pathways were chemical reactions, and enzymes, protein enzymes, controlled them. And so if we controlled the protein, we would control the flow of energy. And in these next couple of chapters, we're really going to be replacing energy with information choice. There'll be flows of information, and the best example that we're going to study extensively in the next couple of lectures is the choice of should I grow and divide or not. And we'll see there is a series of proteins regulating that, and so this is going to allow us to learn about some more proteins. So we're going to do some more proteins and some protein concepts. The chemistry is this similar. The chemistry is going to be similar in all. We'll really again focus on eukaryotes for these stories, but parallel stories, similar stories are also found in prokaryotes in bacteria. So we're zooming in on this, and as we get into this, we'll just get more and more interested in proteins, and we're going to talk about a person who has cancer, and that person who's cancer got a problem with their DNA. And so there's going to just be a natural transition into this concept of we inherit information, and the big job for DNA is to code for proteins. And we'll see that this person has a problem in their DNA coding for a specific protein that is defective and will lead to, in their case, a kind of skin cancer. So this is going to flow like this, and then you'll see that the last concept in our course comes right out of this. It just comes flowing out of this, and it's just a big surprise that this is another big major concept of the story of life on Earth. So we're in really good shape following our story here. And so one thing we're going to do is we're going to focus in on a specific example, and this is a picture of skin, and skin is also called epidermis. And we know the skin is constantly growing and dividing, right? So there would be cells in here that would be slowly dividing. We're going to know that because the skin is constantly being replaced and worn off. And so there's going to be a slow, mitosis is cell division, and there's going to be a slow mitosis in skin cells all through your life. Mitosis is cell division in eukaryotes like us. And we could measure the rate of cell division, and it would be relatively low, right? There is mitosis happening in your skin all the time, and it's slow. it's higher than in your brain. Famously, in your brain, the cells have stopped dividing. So the mitotic index in your brain would be basically close to 0. And low in skin, and then we'll see during normal wound healing, higher. The mitotic index is going to go up. And so this is going to be an example of information flow, where we're going to be regulating this rate, and we're going to say now, temporarily, to heal, we're going to want it to go up. And here's going to be this case of a cancer patient where this woman lived back in about the 1950s, and she had a specific kind of skin cancer. So that's going to be able to contrast with the low mitotic index here, higher mitotic index when there's wound healing, and then an even higher mitotic index, a higher rate of cell division in cancer. So we're going to learn about that information flow, and we're going to learn about what's wrong with these cells in her body. And we're going to find out that it's all about a protein, and there's going to be a protein. Here's the amino acids, the primary amino acid sequence that we have been learning about, and we're just going to learn about some new proteins, and the chemistry story is going to be the same. And what's going to happen is in this woman with skin cancer, she is going to have a defective protein where there was a mutation that joined pieces of 2 different proteins together and create a defective protein that stimulates too much cell division. And this is just a quick look ahead in chapter 12, this idea of the cell cycle. So here's this mitosis, the cell division, and the cell goes through a process of growing and dividing, growing and dividing, and it's a repetitive process, and it is the same in all eukaryotes. So remember way back we saw that there were insulin proteins in all vertebrates, and those insulin proteins were orthologs, right? So they shared a common ancestor, and all eukaryotes share common orthologs that regulate, we'll learn, the cell cycle. So the cell cycle is regulated the same in all eukaryotes, and 15 years ago, these people won, well, maybe this guy didn't quite win the Nobel Prize, but these 3 people did win a Nobel Prize, and they actually studied yeast. So this guy studied in Seattle at the Fred Hutchinson Cancer Research Center. He studied the yeast species that causes bread to rise, like that, and he found these orthologs. He found these proteins that regulate cell division, control this information choice of should I divide or not. These 2 guys actually studied the yeast that causes alcohol fermentation, so brewer's yeast, like that. So these common yeast, single-celled eukaryotes were used, and these people won the Nobel Prize in physiology or medicine. Not because these yeast are dangerous to us, right? They are in bread making and beer making, but instead because these yeast are related to us, and we could see amazing similarities in this control of information that regulates the cell cycle. Okay, so we're going to jump into that in the next few lectures.